Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans, and everyone else, especially everyone else for part of this particular recording, welcome back to the Jack Rose Show. I guess you could be saying, hey, welcome back, Jack. It's been a while. Yeah, 18 weeks since my last upload. It's a pretty long fucking time. I've had a lot of things going on. I was beginning to work on a project back then that got shit canned. Uh, Mostly because of the amount of work that it was going to take and the amount of editing and time that it was going to take. And I'm not even going to bother getting into what it was supposed to be, current events kind of stuff. And I figure there are enough people doing enough of that trying to fit that in with work and my family just didn't make any sense. And then I got some news uh, at the beginning of the year that was not good. And so I've been pretty much out of things for a few months now, trying to balance work and my family with traveling to California and settling my father's affairs after he passed away at the beginning of January is what I have been dealing with. This isn't going to be a boo-hoo recording. It's just what's going on. Mortality is a thing, you know. Humans are not immortal. People do not live forever. My father died of old and natural causes, those kinds of things. I won't get into all the details at the moment. Suffice it to say that I knew he had some health issues, but I had no idea that they were that serious. And I am very thankful that my family in California, despite the distance that we've had between us for, well, ever, uh, they were they were very gracious and they were very kind. I did everything that I could while I was out there to help them, and they did everything that they could while I was out there to help me. And we have stayed in touch much better this time around than we did the last time that I was out there, which was back in 2014. Me and my father were close up to a certain point, but that's a whole other topic, and that topic is a big part of the reason for this particular recording. So this is basically just an update to let you guys know what's going on and what's uh, what's coming down the road. I'm working on two projects. One of those projects is for my family, and I'm essentially taking all of the photographs and things that my dad had that mean something to anybody in my family or anybody that knew him and digitizing them so that they can be reprinted or sent back out in as high quality as I can manage. And it's quite a lot. It's it's a very heavy thing because I've got his entire life in photos from the time he was a baby all the way up until not very long before he passed away, among other things. And so I'm working on that. And in the end of doing that, I will be putting together something like a speaker for the dead kind of thing. Not quite a eulogy or an obituary, though his official obituary will be a part of that project. And that project, um, I am going to edit into video. I took a bunch of video while I was out in California, while me and my cousin were driving around through the valley. And so there's going to be some of that. And you guys might get to hear some of the audio. I need to go through all of it because we weren't really considering uh, our language or our topic of conversation while we were driving through the valley, you know, in terms of how is this going to play if you put it up on the internet. Regular people don't think like that. So some of the audio may have to get scrubbed. I'll just mute it, but it's okay. It's okay. I'll figure it all out. But it's going to be quite a project, and it's going to take me some time to put it all together. So that is what I'm working on. In the meantime, I'll continue to put out short stuff where I can about things that are going on that concern me, or, little cathartic rants here and there. I will say this, and this is that bit at the beginning that I mentioned, the everybody else, especially everybody else. You know, I have friends who live outside of the US, and most of my friends have been outside of the US. As far as I'm concerned, pretty much every other country on earth can go fuck itself. My wife doesn't live there, my daughter doesn't live there, my family isn't there, and I really don't give a shit what their problems are. I don't care if people think that some aspects of some society are better or worse in a foreign land. That is not my fucking problem. I live in Texas, and as long as Texas is okay, I'm happy. And I'm pretty sure most normal fucking people probably pretty much feel that way about their home. And yes, I am a well-educated man. I do understand the interconnectivity of economics and all of the wonderful things or terrible things that you can find when you flip that rock over or go down that particular rabbit trail. The situation with Ukraine, NATO, and the United States government, and the obsession with pushing ourselves into a war with a nuclear power concerns me. Our country is not at its peak strength at the moment. We've got lots of problems. Our economy is not doing as well as it should be. Our government, our media are basically completely full of shit. And at this point, I used to ask, are they stupid and incompetent, or are they evil? And at this point, I am forced to wonder whether or not some of it is one and some of it is the other, but is the majority of it both? Because at a certain point, stupidity is willful, and willful stupidity that harms people is evil. And at a certain point, these assholes have to be choosing this. I'm a veteran. Most of my friends are veterans. I can't imagine that any of us wants our children to grow up in a world that has seen more mushroom clouds of nuclear weapons type nature. I certainly don't. And so I'm very concerned. All of the optimists and the people with a normalcy bias are going to tell me, oh no, that could never happen. Yeah, well, there certainly have been a lot of things that have happened over the past 10 years that people who consider themselves wiser than me said that can never happen until they happened. And they happened the way that I thought they would happen. And when they happened, I thought that they happened a certain way. And it turns out when all the details come out and finally the liars are exposed in their lies, that it did happen exactly the way I fucking thought it did. So don't fucking tell me it can't happen. Don't be stupid. Don't be evil. You know, that used to be Google's motto. Don't be evil. I know, interesting segue, right? Well, those assholes have been helping the evil assholes do evil shit. Now, I'm not what I would call churched. I'm not a very religious person. I've got my magic sky daddy, and we have a particular relationship. Times like these, seeing the shit that's going on in the world, seeing the lies, seeing the corruption, understanding that the normies who are vaguely disconnected and essentially just trying to get through their day to day, much like I am, only I go looking because I don't fucking trust any of these assholes telling me anything. I can understand why those people don't want to believe a lot of the things that are happening in the world or don't believe a lot of the things that are happening in the world. I can understand it. My wife tries to stay disconnected from politics and social issues and all that kind of stuff. She just tries to focus on, being a good wife and being a good mother, playing video games and, you know, trying to trying to deal with family life. It's healthier for her that way. I can't separate myself. I can't turn a blind eye to it. And aside from the big fucking Russian bear sitting in the corner, I'm not going to point to any one particular thing in this recording because there are too many of them. And the point of this video isn't to go poking bears and starting fights. The point of this video is just to voice my concerns. Because, like I said, I am not what I would consider churched, but there is certainly enough going on in the world that it gives a man like me cause to have a few pointed conversations with my magic sky daddy, even if they're one sided, and to hope that cooler and wiser heads prevail in these situations. But I'm not sure that hope is warranted anymore. There's a certain level of nihilism that comes from seeing decade after decade of general corruption, and seeing it metastasize into the kinds of cancers which destroy societies and lead to wars, and lots and lots of people dying. You study enough history, especially military history, and then you start to study it from an economic angle, and you start to see certain things. And as someone much more educated than me once said, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it does often rhyme, or something to that effect. I believe I got the spirit of the thing correct, even if I didn't get the exact words. Well, history is rhyming a lot right now with previous times, former eras. I have far less concerns about the United States political machinery than I do about NATO. I have concerns about NATO because they seem to be in the pockets of some very rich and well-connected people that seem to want the absolute worst for humanity, and that is concerning. That should be concerning to anybody with any sense. But they use pretty words, and they use them to great effect. There aren't very many people that I can have these conversations with reasonably because, well, people will defend their sacred cows. And there are too many people who support the current thing without stopping to think about why they are being expected to support the current thing. They don't know where their positions come from. They didn't arrive at those positions on their own. They were told to think a thing, and so they think the thing, and then they have to rationalize it afterward. And many of them can't because they don't really understand it in the first place. They're just going along and getting along. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to have a contrary opinion because I don't want to be on the wrong side of history. Well, if it means that the Russians chill the fuck out and we don't wind up in a hot war with a nuclear power, if it means that we avoid Thucydides' trap, I say let Ukraine burn. I don't care. I feel the same way about Taiwan. For as fucked up as it is that that small island nation is basically the legitimate seat of government of China, West Taiwan, too much of our manufacturing capacity is in places like India, Brazil, China, Taiwan. And when I say our manufacturing capacity, it's not even necessarily ours, it's theirs. US based companies operate there, but at this point, are they even really US companies? Sure, their headquarters might be at a P.O. box in fucking Delaware. That doesn't mean they're American companies. We need the manufacturing base here. So if we're going to build certain things here, great, we should. And we should let the Chinese have their fucking Taiwan. I don't care anymore. Oh, but costs. Yeah, well, which would you rather pay? Which bill would you rather pay? Would you rather pay more money and eventually have a stronger country, or eventually pay the cost of stupidity in lives? We paid the cost of stupidity in lives during the pandemic because too much of our medical manufacturing was in China. They had control over a lot of our supply chain. That's a problem, isn't it? You got to think these things through. There are good things in the world. There are good people in the world. But the best people in the world don't often wind up in the positions of pulling the levers of power and turning the knobs of influence. That's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And if you ever stop to think even somewhat deeply about it, it's pretty easy to understand why. Someone like me can say, hey man, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Don't hurt nobody, live your life. Be happy, I don't care. And then along comes another guy that says, yeah, well, I think everybody should live their life the way that I want to live my life, and I'm not going to leave you alone until I get what I want. And that's pretty fucking common in human history. As an author I read when I was a teenager, he was a political satirist. I can't remember his name. He was pretty good at it. Uh, he said politics is the art of compromise. War is simply the extremity of politics. It's the ultimate end in compromise. It's the ultimate extreme compromise. Compromise is trade. I give you some of what you want, I get some of what I want. We meet in the middle, we make a deal. War is what happens when you reach the extremes. Give me all of what I want, or I will take it from you by force. That's why we have armies. It's why we have a Second Amendment, part of the reason. It's not the whole reason, but it's part of the reason. And I'm not going to dive into the militia arguments. I'm just going to say go read the law. Go read the actual laws that detail what the militia is. It's right there in black and white. It's in the US Code. It's been there for a long time. A deterrent to the extreme of compromise is part of why we have the Second Amendment. It's why we have militias, and it's why we have military. Military exists, frankly, to kill people and break their shit. And we should not go abroad searching for dragons to slay, because we will find them and we will embed ourselves and ensnare ourselves and entangle ourselves in endless conflicts. We don't need it. We will bleed ourselves dry, monetarily and physically. We don't need it. It's unnecessary. If there was one ultimately American thing that the United States of America could do with the war in Ukraine, it would simply be this: stop sending them money, stop sending them weapons, declare neutrality, and offer to sell medical supplies and food to both sides of the conflict. That's it. If we were doing that, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But we're not doing that. And what we are doing, I have a huge problem with. I'm going to leave it there. I've said everything I needed to say, and I've got quite a day ahead of me. Still got more pictures to go through, digitize. And at some point, I'm going to get the motorcycle out of the garage and break her down for a nice long wash. I have a great afternoon with my kid doing that. Then I'm going to go for a ride. Yep, sounds about good. Well, I've been Jack and you've been you. If you liked this recording, give it a little thumbs up. Share it with your friends, family, even if it's just to talk shit or make fun of me. I don't care. Engage in whatever form of conversation or trolling you would like to down in the comments section. And as always, have a good one.